If you've got money in an S&P 500 index fund, you already own a crash. The 7 biggest stocks, making up about a third of that fund, are down 3.2% this year. The other 493 are up 12.9%. Same index, same 7 months. A roughly 16-point split. And your statement shows you none of it. It shows you the average, up around 8%, near a record high. The crash everyone keeps waiting for isn't coming. It's 7 months old. It only hit the 7 stocks everyone owns. And the people quietly getting rich off it made one simple move you can copy. By the end of this, you'll know what broke, why your statement is hiding it, and the move ordinary people are using to end up on the winning side. You'll also get one number that tells you whether this stays slow or turns violent. Not a prediction. A dial you can go check yourself. I'm not here to scare you, and I'm not selling you anything. I don't want you to sell your index fund. I own one. What I want is for you to know what's inside it, because almost nobody does. The number that surprised me most putting this together wasn't the crash number. It was how completely an index can hide one. Here's the sentence this whole thing turns on. An average is where a crash goes to hide. That isn't a clever line. It's arithmetic. An index isn't a thing you own. It's a number that describes a pile of things you own, and that number can sit perfectly still while everything underneath it goes to war. Picture 2 water tanks connected by a pipe with one gauge on the wall reading the total. Water can pour out of the first tank into the second all day long. The gauge doesn't move. Nothing was lost. Everything moved. That gauge is the S&P 500. Tank 1 is the 7 biggest companies in it. Tank 2 is the other 493. And the water has been moving for 7 months. Start with Tank 1. The 7 biggest stocks down over 3% so far this year. Tesla down 29%, Microsoft down 18%. Tank 2, the other 493, up 12.9%. Take the difference and you get about 16 points of daylight between 2 groups of the same index over the same 7 months. Now put your money in it. If you hold a standard S&P 500 index fund, roughly a third of every dollar in it is sitting in those 7 companies. On a $100,000 position, that's about $32,000 riding 7 stocks. The other $68,000 is spread across 493. Those are round numbers and the weights move daily, but the shape is the point. You didn't choose that. You bought a fund with 500 names on the label and you were handed a bet where 7 of them carry a third of the load. Your statement shows you 8%. It doesn't show you that the 8% is a tug of war between 2 things going in opposite directions. So where did the money go? This is what separates what's happening from an actual crash. In a crash, the water leaks from everywhere. That isn't what the tape says here. The Russell 2000, an index of small-cap US companies, is up about 20% year-to-date, handily beating the S&P. And the other 493 in the S&P are up double digits, which means this isn't destruction, it's a transfer, and a transfer has 2 sides, which is a more uncomfortable thought than a crash. In a crash, everyone gets to agree they were unlucky. The reason you never saw it coming is baked into how the fund is built. An S&P 500 fund doesn't own 500 equal slices. It owns each company in proportion to its size, so the biggest gets the biggest share of your dollar and the smallest gets a rounding error. When 7 companies grow enormous, the fund doesn't protect you from them. It backs up the truck. Let me say that again because it's the whole video. An average is where a crash goes to hide. You weren't diversified, you were concentrated, with extra steps. And none of this is new. It's happened before. In March of 2000, the S&P 500 was also near a record high, and it was also carrying a small group of giants. They had a nickname, the 4 Horsemen: Cisco, Microsoft, Intel, Dell. Analysts who went back over that tape found something uncomfortable about the months before the top. The leaders didn't fall with the market. They started rolling over first, quietly, while the index kept climbing and the headlines kept saying things were fine. Then the top came. The S&P went from 1,454 to about 815, a decline of 44%. And you might be thinking, this is the setup to a doom video. It isn't, and the reason is the part almost nobody tells you about 2000. The people who came out of that decade rich weren't the people who predicted the crash. The people who got rich were already standing in the other tank when the water arrived. Look at what happened after March 2000. Not all of the four horsemen fully recovered. The ones that did took over a decade. The average stock, the boring ones, got back to new highs years earlier. Same index, same crash, two completely different outcomes depending on which side of the average your money was on. Leaders roll first. That's the pattern, and it's running again. Now the honest part, because this is where most videos lie to you. This is not 2000. Back then, the leaders were burning cash and selling a story. The 7 companies at the top of your index fund are among the most profitable businesses that have ever existed. They earn staggering real money every quarter from customers who actually pay them. Anyone telling you the index is about to lose almost half its value is selling you something. So I'm not going to claim a crash is coming. Crashes are fast. This claim is smaller and more useful. The transfer is already running, slowly, and you've got time to get on the right side of it. Because one dial has separated every ordinary pullback from every real crash in the modern era. And it isn't a price. It's whether banks are willing to lend. Go back to 2000 to 2008 to 2022. In every one of them, more than 40% of banks were tightening their lending standards. Credit gets expensive, then it gets unavailable. And then the water stops moving between tanks and starts leaving the building. That number, the share of banks tightening, has been running around 8%. That's the honest read, and it's why I keep saying transfer instead of collapse. The pipe is open. Money is moving sideways rather than running for the exit. And you don't have to take my word for it. The Federal Reserve's Senior Loan Officer Opinion Survey on bank lending practices is published quarterly on the Fed's site at federalreserve.gov. You can look at it yourself. Write down the number 40. While the reading stays low, this is a transfer. If it climbs toward 40, the conversation changes. One thing belongs next to it. The Shiller-Cape ratio. It's the stock market's most watched long-run valuation measure. And right now, it's telling you this is the second most expensive American stock market in more than 150 years. The reading sits near 40. The dot-com peak was 44.2. The long-run average is 17. Expensive markets don't have to fall. They just don't leave much room for disappointment. Before we get to the move making people rich, let's be honest about who's on each side of this. If you've been putting money into an S&P 500 index fund every payday, watching the balance climb, feeling good about being diversified, you're the one carrying the concentrated bet. Not because you did anything wrong. Because you did the thing everybody told you was the safe thing, and the fund changed underneath you while the label stayed the same. On the other side are people who noticed the label had stopped matching the contents and moved. Not traders, not people with a crystal ball. People who looked at what they owned, decided a third of their money in 7 companies was more of a bet than they meant to make, and made one move. That's the transfer. The only question left is which side of it you're standing on. So what is the simple move that is making ordinary people rich? Diversify. And you've got 2 choices. 1, keep the fund and add the other side. Small caps, for instance. Say a Russell 2000 index fund. Sending part of your allocation there, or just pointing new contributions at it, moves money toward Tank 2 without selling anything you already own. Inside a retirement account, moving between funds doesn't create a tax bill. In a regular brokerage account, it can. Check your own plans menu rather than assuming. 2. Buy the equal weight version of the same index. Same 500 companies, except everyone gets about 0.2% instead of being sized by how big it is. Run the arithmetic. 7 companies at 0.2% each is 1.4%. So the 7 drop from about 32 cents of every dollar to about a penny and a half, and you keep all 493 of the ones that have been winning. That, in one move, reduced the position that took a decade to pay off after March 2000. It has a real cost. Equal weight funds tend to charge around 0.20% a year against about 0.03% for a standard index fund, roughly 7 times the fee. And every year the giants lead, this version lags. It's a trade, not a free lunch. Of course, doing nothing is always an option, but on purpose. If you look at what those 7 companies earn and you decide the prices are justified, a third of your money in them is a legitimate position held by serious people. The point is that it becomes a decision instead of a default. Most people carrying this bet never decided to. Before the close, this is where I tell you how I could be wrong. If those 7 companies keep growing their earnings fast enough to justify what they cost, the gap closes from the other direction. They stabilize, they lead again, the 493 gives some of it back. And everything in this video becomes a footnote. That's a real possibility, not a courtesy. And nobody can time the break, including me. This could grind sideways for years. But notice what none of that changes. Whether the 7 recover or roll over, a third of your money is riding on 7 companies. That's true in every version of the future. The only thing in question is whether it's yours on purpose. So, 2 roads. On the first one, nothing changes. The statement keeps showing you an average. The average keeps feeling fine, and you find out what was underneath it the way most people find out, which is afterward, all at once. On the second one, you go look. You open the fund, you find the page that lists what's actually in it, and you see the number for yourself. Maybe you decide you're comfortable. That's a legitimate answer. What you can't do anymore is not know. That's the shift, and it's what I promised you at the start. You stop being someone who owns an index and start being someone who owns 500 companies and knows how much of each one. It isn't a tip, it's a different relationship with something you already have. And keep the momentum going. Watch as the US planning a $50,000 gold revaluation. It's on your screen. And if this changed how you see the S&P, subscribe. Remember, this isn't personal financial advice. It's education so you can build your own plan. See you in the next video.